Will the sanctions actually have an effect? The US has stated that it intends to put more sanctions on Iran in retaliation for the country obtaining the S-400 air defense system from Russia. Iran is not going to back down. In fact, it has warned the Arab nations not to back Israel while Iran is prepared to confront its enemies. Will it bend under the threat of sanctions? Let's discover that the US has enjoyed dominance in the Middle East up its alley, bullying nations into submission with military interventions, covert operations, and sanctions. But times are changing. Iran, a country that has resisted relentless Western pressure, is now forging an even closer alliance with Russia, threatening to completely alter the geopolitical landscape of the region. This new partnership isn't just about providing military hardware, it's about signaling to the world that the days of the US and Israeli hegemony are coming to an end. The question is not if the US and Israel will topple from their position, but rather when that topple will occur. Washington and TA have responded in a number of ways to Iran's recent acquisition of the S-400 air defense system from Russia, but let's face it, this isn't about security or peace. Rather, it's about power, which the US is losing. Additionally, Iran has sent a strong warning to Arab nations, stating that they will suffer dire consequences if they continue to back Israel. The point is evident. The US has been threatening Iran with sanctions every time it moves to defend itself or fortify its alliances. The US has responded with sanctions every time, but why does the US cling so tenaciously to this antiquated tool? Tehran is done playing by the rules set by the West, and it's leading the charge against an oppressive system that has dominated the Middle East for far too long. Since the 1979 Iranian Revolution, the US has treated Iran as a pariah state, subjecting it to sanctions in an attempt to isolate the country politically and economically. However, over 4 decades later, Iran not only survives but thrives, having developed a robust internal economy, expanded its military industry, and formed alliances with powerful nations like China and Russia. When the US tightens its grip, Iran manages to elude its grasp and evade the latest sanctions. This is especially true given historical evidence that sanctions rarely achieve their intended goals. The aim of the sanctions, which the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken proudly announced would be directed towards Iranian and Russian military cooperation, is obviously to restrict Iran's access to military technology and its capacity to defend itself. But let's face it, sanctions haven't been effective for the past 40 years, so why should they now? The US is losing its hold on the Middle East, and sanctions are the last tool in its toolbox. It's like watching a bully who is outmatched but keeps throwing punches long after the fight is lost. Is Russia's involvement with Iran a threat to the US? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's politics, economy, and changing landscape. Iran-Russia alliance is giving Washington and Tel Aviv a lot of anxiety, and for good reason. This is more than just a military alliance. This is a political realignment with the potential to upend. Iran and Russia have historically shared mutual interests, particularly when it comes to resisting US influence in the region, but this partnership is now developing into something much deeper for Russia. This was evident after decades of Western dominance in the Middle East when Iran reportedly sent 400 ballistic missiles to Russia, including THAAD-110 tactical missiles. In its larger geopolitical plan to offset US and NATO dominance for Iran, Iran is a crucial ally. Russia is a geopolitical ally as well as a military partner in its effort to steer the Middle East towards a new order free from Western meddling. This goes beyond air defense systems and missiles. Russia and Iran are collaborating on a number of fronts, including information sharing and energy collaboration. This alliance poses a challenge to the current power dynamics in the area, eroding our influence and that of Israel over nations that have long been ruled by Washington. The actual match. This is exactly why the US and Israel are so concerned. They want Iran and Russia to follow their instructions on how to deal with Israel, but that's not going to happen even if you scare them with sanctions. Instead, what Iran and Russia are doing is demonstrating to the world that you don't need Western approval to succeed. They are setting a new standard for how nations can resist imperialism and forge their own path. Iran has issued a warning to the Arab nations, stating that failure to support Israel would have dire consequences. This warning goes beyond simple threats. It is a moral protest against the system that has allowed Israel to persecute the Palestinian people for years, with little more than lip service from its neighbors. The Arab nations have verbally supported the Palestinian cause but have secretly warmed up to Israel. The Western narrative attempts to portray Iran as the aggressor, but let's not lose sight of the facts. Iran is done with the hypocrisy and is making it clear that there will be consequences for any Arab nation that stands with the oppressor. For decades, Israel has been carrying out atrocities against the Palestinian people, ranging from cruel military occupations to illegal settlements. Whenever Israel stands up to defend its allies, such as Hezbollah, it is branded as the aggressor, and its crimes remain unpunished. Iran launched missiles towards Israel, but these were acts of defense rather than aggression. Iran is not just defending its interests, it is also speaking up for the many oppressed Arabs who have been subjected to Israel's apartheid policies. Tran is now criticizing the Arab countries who continue to ignore these injustices in favor of stronger ties with Israel. The days of pulling double games are past. Iran's message to the Arab world is clear: if you back Israel, you should too. Because of your involvement in its crimes, you will pay a price. This is about justice, not politics, and Iran is on the right side of history. To put it simply, Iran is at war with Israel, and anyone who supports Israel, whether through the West or its Arab nations, is at war with Iran. Meanwhile, the Arab nations are maintaining their neutrality in the conflict, while the US is unsure of its position. Recently, the Arab nations affirmed their neutrality in the war, but the US response is unclear. Given the stark contrast between Biden's caution and Trump's desire for action, where does the US stand on the issue of Israel attacking Iran? Biden believes that it shouldn't attack, while Trump believes that it should. GOP hardliners will continue to push for a more aggressive approach, and it is unlikely that the US will take a cogent stand on Iran anytime soon. Instead, we're likely to see more of the same, a combination of diplomatic and punitive measures without a clear long-term strategy as Biden attempts to re-engage Iran diplomatically. Although Biden's reluctance to support an outright strike on Iran suggests that Washington may no longer be willing to give Israel carte blanche when it comes to military action, Israel will continue to press the US for support in its confrontation with Iran. However, should Trump or a leader